Hello and welcome to the semifinals of Grand Prix Boston Worcester. I'm Ben Swartz, joined here in the booth by Ray Punzlon.
Hello, everyone.
And we've got quite the match for you. Alex Lloyd on the left-hand side of your screen, facing off against Brian Demars on the right-hand side of your screen, and play is already underway. Looks like Alex started things off with a duty-bound dead, and he's going to use it to knock Brian Demars down to 19 life. No turn 2 play, though.
So Brian Demars' deck's a blue-red control deck. He's aiming for a late game of Stormtide Leviathan. Sphinx of Uthin has early defenses of Wall of Fire. He has some early Goblin Arsonists. Divination help him bring him to the late game.
Yep.
He's main decking a Kraken Hatchling to try to hold off some of the offensive of his opponent. So far we haven't seen anything, but there's the first Wall of Fire. One of two Wall of Fires in his main deck, has a third one in his board. There's a Knight of Infamy over in Alex's hand.
And finally, Alex finds the second color with a forest, and he's going to cast Spike Baloth.
4/2 Trampler will be a little more threatening with the Exalted triggers. Now, in Alex's deck, what I see here, he has some Crippling Blights, which could be good against the defenders of
Brian Demars.
Brian Demars' deck. In addition to that, he has nothing too out of the ordinary in the black section.
Looks like Searing Spear will take out that Spike Baloth, and Brian Demars will pass it back. Alex Lloyd looking over his options.
He does have a Thragtusk. Is that in his hand, a Thragtusk?
I can't quite get a good look. Looks like he's going to tap 4 and cast Bloodhunter Bats. Is there an Essence Drain in his future? Doesn't look like it, and Brian Demars will fall to 16. Alex will go up to 22.
Or Essence Scatter.
Yeah, Essence Scatter, I'm sorry. Alex will play another land before passing it over to Brian Demars.
For the flyer ends, I'm trying to see what does Brian Demars have for defense.
He's got
a Fairy Invaders.
Fairy Invaders, yeah.
I think he's kind of
Switcheroo, Sphinx. Void Stalker.
Void Stalker, that will do that.
But I doubt Brian Demars wants to use Void Stalker on a lowly Bloodhunter Bats unless he really needs to. So still with 4 cards in hand, Alex goes ahead and attacks in with the Bloodhunter Bats. No blockers on Brian's side means that he'll fall to 14 life.
There's the Thragtusk for sure, I see. Is this another Bloodhunter Bat?
Looks like he's got an Acidic Slime.
No, that's not another Bloodhunter Bat. It's
a Knight of Infamy and a Thragtusk. So he's going to go ahead and cast that Thragtusk, 5/3. When it comes to play, he gains 5 life. So Alex will go up to 27. And of course, when it leaves play, Alex will net a 3/3 Beast Token.
That Thragtusk is just unbelievably powerful. Swings helps you stay in the game longer, leave something behind. Get it like you can't unsummon it.
I mean, you can,
but you can't burn it away without any of it leaving behind, without it leaving the token behind. So there's it's definitely a huge threat, and it's a lot harder to deal with your Wall of Fire when your Wall of Fire is just an 0/5. Though it seems like Brian Demars, he has a Flames of Firebrand, so if he wants to get rid of the Bloodhunter Bats, he could use it there.
Yeah, but you don't really want to use the Flames of the Firebrand on only one creature. You want to try to get a little more value out of it. But Brian Demars is thinking, if he's going to continue to get attacked by that 3-power flyer thanks to Exalted, he might want to just ping it out of the air right now and use the time he buys with that to sculpt his endgame.
So with Void Stalker, is there a way you're able to stack the ability where you could unsummon it too?
I believe so.
So that might be something that Brian's looking for.
But instead, he just, like you said, casts Flames of the Firebrand on the Bloodhunter Bat, deals Alex 1 point of damage. Does he have a second play? Does not look like it. Brian Demars will pass it back to Alex. So Alex here deciding between what he wants to cast. Flicking between, is that a second Bloodhunter Bats? First he's going to
start off with Thragtusk.
Yep. And
Void
Brian Demars is going to block with Void Stalker and shuffle it into his library. Alex is going to get a 3/3.
Void Stalker and Thragtusk go away. And Brian's already at 13. Alex has double the life total right now.
Yeah. That Bloodhunter Bats really did some work. And I guess also the Thragtusk did some work too. By netting in that 3/3 Beast token, Alex still has an army left at his disposal.
There's a Knight of Infamy. We have the Spike Bailoff. We're going to go 5-mana Acidic Slime.
Slime one of your islands.
Slime's one way to get past Wall of Fire too. Or trade it.
Looks like a Rummaging Goblin was drawn for Brian Demars.
He does have a second Divination in his hand. We'll see what he decides to go with, either Rummaging Goblin or Divination. He'll go with can't pick one soon.
Both cost 3 mana, so. Looks like he'll end up with Divination to start things off, because then if he draws a land, he can also cast the Rummaging Goblin.
He does draw that land.
He also has got a Turn to Slag in his hand that he drew. So Brian Demar's thinking what he wants his next play to be.
And there is the Rummaging Goblin. So Brian's board of Wall of Fire and Rummaging Goblin staring down the Beast token and Acidic Slime. I imagine we're going to see Acidic Slime come in here for at least 3, maybe if Knight of Infamy finally comes into play, get another Exalted Trigger there. His Titanic Growth in his hand.
Can Alex somehow close this out? I don't think so. He's still got a couple turns away. But he's going to start things off with a Knight of Infamy.
2/1 Pro White Exalted.
And crash in with a 4/4 Beast token thanks to the 5/5 Beast token thanks to the Exalted Duty Bound Dead and the newly minted Knight of Infamy. Pass the turn back to Brian. Brian sitting at 8 life. Needs something.
So Brian is also, let's see, was 1 mana short from his Sphinx. He's 2 mana short from his Leviathan. He's only sitting at 8 life. I don't know. I can't see what his hand consists of yet. But in order to stay in this game, I feel like you really need to be digging in for his late game spells. All right.
So it looks like Brian is going to cast...
What is he going to come up with here?
Divination, a 3rd one. Looks like we've got an update from the 4.
Robert Victory is up 1-0 against Cedric Phillips.
And after that Divination, Brian Demars is going to cast a Goblin Arsonist. That'll be able to block the Beast token and take out the Knight of Infamy if Alex makes the same attack that he did last turn.
So now 7 mana on play. He has, I think that's a Sphinx of Unthun in his hand. Also a Spell Twine, I believe. But there's nothing in
Alex's graveyard.
Yeah, nothing at all in Alex's graveyard.
So Alex thinking over his options.
Right, there's a Bond Beetle in his hand, kind of questionable card. What's your thoughts on Bond Beetle?
It has its place in Roaring Primadox decks, but
everywhere else?
I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it, but it looks like Alex Lloyd has decided to attack with the Acidic Slime. Brian Demars insta-blocks with Goblin Arsonist to take out the Knight of Infamy. Does Alex want to cast that Titanic Growth to save it? Does not look like it.
Looks like he's going to aim for something to close it out instead. I feel like he could have used the Bond Beetle there to protect his Knight of Infamy. It's pretty obvious what Brian's plan was going to be.
Spike Bailoff comes down for Alex Lloyd post-combat, and also it looks like the Bond Beetle will come down to add a +1/+1 counter.
Probably on Spike Bailoff. It has the trample. Going to be doing a lot of attacking.
Yep. Oh.
Is he going for the Beast token?
Okay.
So the Beast token 4/4. I guess that's one way to get it through the Wall of Fire.
Okay, sure. Rummaging Goblin will rummage away a Kraken Hatchling for Brian Demars. Draw him a Mountain to add to his turn to slag hand, along with an unsummon and one other card. Looks like since it's still end of turn, unsummon is going to take out the Beast token. Sorry, that Bond Beetle counter isn't going to do you much good. Brian Demars draws for his turn. Looks like he redrew the Void Stalker.
So now, yeah, looks like he did draw the Void Stalker. 7 mana. Brian really just wants one of his late game spells now.
He's considering if he wants to Spell Twine, but there's no spells in Alex Lloyd's graveyard. Rummaging Goblin something away in order to get one of his big guys, either his Sphinx of Uthun or the Stormtide Leviathan.
What can he come up with here? Yeah, spell. Is that a? Oh, that's not a current card.
Turn to slag.
Yeah, there's turn to slag. Oh, it's 2 red.
Does he want to turn to slag the Spike Bailoff here?
Yeah, I think you get rid of the Spike Bailoff. The trampling is going to be an issue.
And that's what Brian Demars does. Takes out the Spike Bailoff, and then post that, he's going to cast the Void Stalker again.
So now this lets Acidic Slime come in. If he's not careful, this Acidic Slime could accidentally take him out.
I think the other 2 cards in Alex Lloyd's hand, besides the Forest he drew for this turn, is a Titanic Growth and a Dark Favor.
So I feel like, Alex, you attack with your Acidic Slime, you get the Exalted trigger. Is Brian just going to take it here? I mean, being at 5 life, oh, he's just going to take it.
Wow. Skirting on the edge there. Almost into that Titanic Growth, but not quite.
Yeah, very, very close.
Looks like after combat.
I'm at 26. You only subtracted 2. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Alex is going to cast. Dark Favor? That doesn't seem to make too much sense. Maybe he's just going to, pass the turn back to Brian Demars. Brian will Rummaging Goblin away a land.
See, what did he get in exchange for that land?
Holding the cards at a 90-degree angle so he can't see, but it says switcheroo is what he drew.
Ooh, a switcheroo. There's nothing you really want to switcheroo?
You could switcheroo the Void Stalker is probably the best thing, but you might as well use it as just a removal spell normally.
Now that's something fun you could do. You could switcheroo the Void Stalker and then respond with its own ability.
Does that work? Does switcheroo still make it go through?
Or do both targets have to be illegal?
Yep.
No, you need both targets.
To exchange them, right?
Yeah.
Acidic Slime will get in again, and this time Void Stalker will block it, shuffle them both back in. Brian Demars has already been able to draw his Void Stalker again. Now Alex Lloyd, will he draw either his Thragtusk or his Acidic Slime again?
Yeah, Brian's been able to dig, though, with his Divinations and his Rummaging Goblin.
Sure. So, yeah, he's gotten a lot more draws to find his cards again.
Is there any follow-up for Alex?
I don't know what he drew. It looks like he drew Swamp, and still his hand is Dark Favor and Titanic Growth.
Island discarded.
Fairy Invaders is drawn for Brian Demars.
So a little offensive action finally coming. Is that the Stormtide Leviathan?
Yeah, I guess so. He doesn't have any Talron's Invocation in his deck, so. Oh, no. Maybe it was a Talron's Invocation. Yeah, it looks like a Talron's Invocation.
So 2 awesome draws on back-to-back turns for Brian.
Brian thinking over what he wants to do. He could cast Tower Invocation here to get the 2/2 flyers, and that seems to be what he wants to do.
Yep.
Sure, they'll get him tokens in just a bit, but those are going to be 2/2 flying tokens from the Talon's Invocation. Swamp. So Alex has been bricking. He's sitting on Titanic Growth, and I know there was another land in his deck. Clapping there early sounds like Cedric Phillips might be eliminated since he lost game 1, but we'll get the update soon. Duty bound.
Dead is going to attack in there and get blocked by the Wall of Fire.
Alex is like, should I use my Titanic Growth?
Does not seem to make too much sense there.
Brian was tempted to discard his Spell Twine. Draws a land.
Attacks in for 4. Finally chipping away at Alex's life total. Looks like Victory, Robert Victory defeats Cedric Phillips and goes on to the finals in 2 games. So we have a winner for this match as soon as it's done to play for Grand Prix Boston Worcester champion. Duty Bound Dead attacks in again.
This time Titanic Growth is going to go.
Yep. I think Brian Demars is fine with that exchange, right?
Yeah, I think he's excited about it. Now Spell Twine has a target if he needs it.
Sure.
He can pump up one of his flyers, so it's not like a total waste, and bring out more with Talleyrand's Invocation. It's looking pretty good for Brian considering he's only at 5 life. Oh, he forgot. Yeah, he has a discard first. So let's see. He probably will get a warning here.
Well, it depends. It hit his hand, so I'm not exactly sure what the penalty will be. Talking to the judge.
Right, so they're going to get yeah, the judge is right there. Stopped him right away. We saw him put down the exact card that he drew.
We have the tape. So talking to the judge, trying to figure out what the ruling will be for Brian Demars. Drawing that card before discarding it with Rummaging Goblin. Maybe we can get our spotter on the floor to give us an update.
Yeah, he'll be back soon, but it'd be heartbreaking if he got something. Yeah, got something more than a warning here.
So we're going to wait for that ruling. Man, it seems so good for Brian Demars going into this position, right?
Yeah, just waiting for a ruling there. The card did come to his hand, but he immediately put it back. He saw what it was.
So how long have you been playing? I haven't played for a long time. Oh, yeah?
Do we have a report from our spotter on the floor, Rusty Kubis? Looks like he was down there reporting. He's going to get us a new report soon.
He was just watching. He's like, what's going on?
But, man, I mean, we have the tape, right? So I'm not exactly sure. Normally this is a game loss, I believe. But it's also the top 8 of the Grand Prix. It might be more than that. It might be less than that. Not exactly sure. I'm not a judge.
Yeah, the judge caught him right away. I'm not sure what the judge saw, but I know that Brian did put back the card that he drew there.
Yep.
So I have no question on that. But I guess it's all dependent on what the judge says now.
So we got our spotter on the floor. Rusty, what is the update? You want to say? Okay. Right, I understand what happened. So It looks like Brian Demars made the same exact error in the quarterfinals. The last time he put it in his hand, deep in his hand. So they're trying to figure out exactly what the penalty is. The judges are talking. They have a little meeting going on over there to decide what the correct penalty is here. Rusty, do you know what the penalty was last time? Rusty will get on that for us.
It had to be a warning because he won 2-0.
Well, I believe he won 2-0, but he got a warning last time, so interesting.
So we're just sitting here figuring out what's going to happen.
Yeah, Rummaging Goblin different than the Merfolk Looter that we've seen in multiple core sets. You discard first and then you draw, instead of drawing first and discarding later, like Merfolk Looter.
Yeah.
Or a bevy of other cards.
I'm just tired. It's been a long day.
So, looking here at Alex's deck, I guess we could talk a little bit about what we haven't seen from him. With Brian Demars at 5, what kind of things can Alex do to try to come back in his game? He has his Thragtusk to buy him time, which got reshuffled in by the Void.
Sure.
The Void Stalker earlier in the game. That'll help him buy some time.
If he deals 3 damage, he's got a Sign-In Blood that you can use to deal the last 2 points of damage.
That's true there. So you got nothing else that will really help him right now. He has in his board. He does have Plummet. I know a lot of people.
It looks like the judge here is going to step in. Okay, judge walked away.
Suspense here at the Grand Prix Boston.
More discussion by the judges.
Just on board, it doesn't look like Alex has too much things he can draw to help him stay in this game. I know I've messed up my Rummaging Goblin early on. You're so used to years of Merfolk Looter where you draw then discard, and then Rummaging Goblin comes along where you have to discard first and then draw.
So we're still waiting on that ruling. I think they're talking to the head judge right now, bringing in the big guns. If you think more about this game, that Spell Twine, what can it do here? Can it get back Coward's Invocation and buy back Titanic Growth?
Reported by Blake Rasmussen, Victory beat Cedric by milling out with Sands of Delirium.
In Game 2. In Game 1, 3 Tormented Souls took Cedric out.
Oh, wow.
So it looks like maybe Robert Victory's deck is quite powerful.
We could take a peek at Robert Victory's deck to see what Cedric was up against. All right, so 3 Tormented Souls is the exact number that Robert has in his entire list there. He also has 2 Chandra's Furies. He's a Mind Claw Shaman in his deck, Krenko's Command.
Looks like an aggressive black-red deck, along with a random Sands of Delirium, which can win games on its own. Wow, they have almost all the judges over there. We don't have a video feed for that, but they are talking, trying to figure out exactly what will go on here. We will get you guys the ruling as soon as possible.
He has Volcanic Strength in his deck, too.
So Rashad says it's not drawing extra cards. It's a game rule violation, but since he did the same exact game rule violation previous round, they have to figure out exactly what the correct penalty is.
If I remember correctly, I thought it was 3 of the same game rule violations. Oh, but not okay. In general, if it's the same one, you're not sure. Okay. So in general, it's 3 game rule violations, but they're trying to figure out what happens when the game rule violations is the exact same one you got previously.
Right.
And we're just waiting on that. So back to Rob Victory's deck. We talked about how the Tormented Souls, he also has Volcanic Strength, just really aggressive black-red deck. And I guess with Cedric's deck, he seems well positioned for this, but Tormented Souls is something his Fog Banks can handle.
Right. Unblockable.
He has the 2 pacifisms.
Oh, it looks like Brian Demars is stepping away from the table to talk to the judges.
Yeah, and then if we go back to Cedric's deck, what kind of things could he have done to stop the Tormented Souls?
Doesn't happen too much.
Just pacifism,
Calling
unsummons, and that's about it.
serious one, but I haven't really been over in the Metro recently.
I've been on public events. That was how they started.
And with Sands of Delirium, there's
Top 8 seems to be the place to be when no one's anywhere else.
Looks like Mark Caldero is explaining to us what exactly is going on.
Okay. So it's a warning for a gamer violation for not properly paying a cost. Because I saw what the card was and it went back on top. We're going to shuffle that.
Okay.
So you shuffle, you present, and then.
Okay, so it looks like they're going to make him shuffle away that top card
Okay.
and take one new from, discard a card and then take one new from random. But since it's the second time that's happened in the top 8, if it happens for a third time, that's going to be a game loss. So
Yeah.
Brian Demars has to be very, very careful not to activate that Rummaging Goblin in the incorrect way.
discard first, draw.
That's his second warning.
Yeah. And picks
Draws
up
a forest anyway.
Oh, mountain.
Or mountain, yeah.
And then end of turn, puts a Fairy Invaders.
Can play, untaps, draws for his turn. Still with Switcheroo and Spell Twine in his hand. Draws another mountain.
All right, so Brian has 7 power on the board. He has Spell Twine in his hand. He could use a Spell Twine if you'd like. Oh, the Fairy Invaders aren't coming in.
Yeah, so instead he'll just attack him with his 2/2/2 Drakes. That'll drop Alex down to 18. He'll keep his Fairy Invaders back to block.
All right.
You can tell Brian's a little rattled because of that judge ruling, making the same mistake.
Sentinel Spider drawn by Alex. Finally, some defenses to the flying forces of Brian.
That's for sure. Looks like he's figuring out if he wants to play it right now, he wants to attack first, or what exactly he wants to do.
Dark favor on the Duty Bound Dead.
Oh, Dark Favor on the Duty Bound.
Dead. Interesting. That will drop Alex down to 17 life.
Combat. 4.
And it will make Duty Bound Dead into a 3/3, now a 4/4 because of Exalted. So they'll be able to fight with and defeat the Fairy Invaders if Brian Demars wants to block, but let's see what Brian Demars decides to do. He's considering his options. Playing with his lands, looking through his graveyard, figuring out what he could do with that Spell Twine. What does Brian want to do here? Does he want to block with the Fairy Invaders? Just let it die? Interesting. Post-combat, Alex Lloyd is going to cast that Sentinel Spider, as we know, as we saw.
Sentinel Spider.
Is Sentinel Spider okay?
And Sentinel Spider resolves. All right, end of turn. Brian will discard first, do this properly, draws an island off the Rummaging Goblin.
Draws another mountain for his turn. That's not what he wanted to see, 4 lands in a row. Brian again taking his time. How can he get himself back into this game? With just 2 cards, that Dark Favor and the Sentinel Spider. Game's completely been turned around. I'm also curious as to why he blocked with his Fairy Invaders last turn. Maybe he thought that Rummaging Goblin was instrumental to his path to victory, but
Yeah,
I was thinking that he might chump block with the Rummaging Goblin, attacking for 7, or attacking for 11, spell twining the Titanic Growth, and getting back to Tower Invocation.
yeah, get a couple more blockers in the way if you need it, or
I guess he would need a removal spell for the Sentinel Spider, but this is when Alex was attacking without knowledge of the Sentinel Spider.
So Rummaging Goblin was played, picks up a Wall of Fire from there.
That will give a blocker for a single turn. Brian considering if he wants to cast that first, the Wall of Fire. looks like that's what he'll choose to do. And he'll pass the turn back to Alex.
Spelltwine's been sitting in his hand. No attacking this time.
I mean,
I feel like
he can't really profitably attack into that Sentinel Spider.
Yeah.
I suppose he does have a Searing Spear in his graveyard that he could use to take out that Sentinel Spider after it blocked a Drake token, but...
5.
Okay, so now maybe Brian Demars is going to go on the offensive.
So is Spelltwine a sorcery or is a...
I believe it is a sorcery. I'm sorry. Alex is attacking with Sentinel Spider, so he's considering triple blocking here, Brian, that is. Brian is thinking through his possibilities. Looks like he's just going to chump block with the Drake token on the Sentinel Spider. Does Alex have a follow-up play? His last card, newly minted Walking Corpse. Brian Demars draws for his turn.
Yeah, it looks like Brian's just looking for that Stormtide Leviathan.
Yeah, that would be huge here. Looks like, did he draw an unsummon? Does he have a second one? Yeah, he does have a second unsummon. That looks to be what he drew. He's first going to play a land. Cast for 5 mana. Spelltwine. Switcheroo.
Switcheroo. Wall of Fire for Sentinel Spider.
Okay.
Deal.
That will allow him to continue bringing in the beats in with his flyer.
And now, can the token come in and not have to worry too much?
Depends whether or not Brian is afraid of a second Titanic Growth. If he knows the deck list, then he knows that he has no reason to be. Which I believe he does because it's the semifinals. So the Drake will get in, drop Alex down to 15 life.
Yeah, Brian Demars' deck has to be getting really thin. He's used Rummaging Goblin nearly every turn since it's been out.
Yeah. He's not redrawn that Voidstalker, though.
Crippling Blight.
So
Ooh,
Crippling Blight on the Sentinel Spider. Is that going to be enough to do it?
I don't know. I think Brian is going to have to go on Chumping Duties finally with the Rummaging Goblin that he has been so reliant on throughout the entire game here.
It does not seem currently like it's going to do it. But Alex is going to get in anyway. Rummaging Goblin has to chump here. 5 damage coming towards Brian. Brian does have an unsummon in his hand that he can use on perhaps that Duty Bound Dead, which it looks like that's what he's going to do.
But do you chump here? Because now something like Essence Drain could finish you off.
It looks like Brian is going to block. And
Discard
rummage.
first. And this time, he draws an island.
Damage can resolve.
So Rummaging Goblin perishes.
All right. So Alex wants to take a look at the graveyard of Brian. So Brian's been through 2 divinations, nonstop
3
rummaging.
divinations.
Yeah, he's played 3 divinations, nonstop rummaging goblins, and it hasn't hit either his Sphinx or his Stormtide Leviathan.
We'll play the Duty Bound Dead.
I think at this point, the Sphinx is not going to do it.
Yeah. Duty Bound Dead comes back down for Alex. And Brian goes to his draw step. Didn't get a look at what Brian drew, but he's going to take his time to think. He does not want to lose this game here. Can't really attack him with that Sentinel Spider. It's a 3-3. He'll just get blocked by the Wall of Fire. Can he afford to attack him with the Drake? Being unable to block the Walking Corpse if it were to attack in.
All right, so Brian's setting aside 6 mana here.
That's enough for Spell Twine. Is he finally going to pull the trigger?
Spell Twine, he has a lot of options.
It's unfortunate that Alex's only instant or sorcery in the graveyard is Titanic Growth, but looks like he is going to pull the trigger on Spell Twine.
What spells will he pick here? There's that Talon's Invocation that we thought he might have targeted a while ago.
Yeah, so Spell Twine for Brian Demars. That's going to get back either Talrand's Invocation, maybe a Divination.
Flames of Firebrand, Searing Spear. None of these sound as good as Talon's Invocation.
So definitely Titanic Growth. He could get the Flames of Firebrand and take out a Bond Beetle and the Walking Corpse, I suppose.
Yeah.
Or the Searing Spear and just take out the Walking Corpse. Or Divination, draw cards.
Oh, Divination.
Divination, okay.
So Brian's really believing that only way he could win is Stormtide Leviathan.
I'm not exactly sure how many cards are in his deck. But
yeah, the Sphinx is not even an option now. The Sphinx is just going to take up too many cards.
Is that a Stormtide Leviathan? That's the Sphinx of Ulfun.
Yeah, and I think we're too low where he would be unable to utilize the Sphinx.
So he'll, or maybe he redrew that Voidstalker. He did redraw that Voidstalker. He's going to cast. What does Alex Lloyd draw? Looks like a forest. That's not going to help him. Walking Corpse will attack in. And Brian Demars will choose to block it with a Drake token.
Yep.
And Alex will pass the turn back.
Brian needs Stormtide. Ooh,
Elixir of Immortality. I didn't see that on his deck list.
All right, so he has Elixir in his deck. I guess now Stormtide Leviathan, no matter where it's at, it's very live.
Yeah. I don't know how many cards are left in Brian Demars' deck, but maybe he just wants to cast the Sphinx first, then the Elixir, in order to guarantee that he gets the Stormtide Leviathan. So first he's going to cast the Elixir of Immortality. Or maybe not. He's taking his time here. Does not want to make an error, does not want to make another error similar to the Rummaging Goblin one he made previously.
Elixir of Immortality here. Now you Sphinx, take the pile that says Stormtide Leviathan, but he's worried. Maybe Alex is like a mind rot. He's back to searching for his Stormtide Leviathan. We know Alex has both of his mind rots in the board.
I believe Brian Demars also has access to the deck list. I could be wrong, but usually that's how it works.
Oh, so
he's just going to activate the Elixir of Immortality right now, go up to 10 life, shuffle his graveyard into his library. Since there's so many cards, he's going to go ahead
I thought he might have wanted to just go ahead and dig for the Leviathan first.
I suppose the 5/5 flyer is almost as good.
I don't know why he did that right there.
Now he's going to cast the Sphinx, Fact or Fiction, reveal the top 5 cards, have Alex put them into 2 piles, and then Brian gets to choose which of the 2 piles he wants. And look at those 5 cards. Divination, Elixir of Immortality, Island, Talrand's Invocation, and Unsummon. Looks like Alex is going to set it up as Talrand's Invocation and something else has to be that way.
Not Divination.
Oh, Talrand's Invocation and everything else.
Brian's happy with that deal?
Brian can unsummon his Sphinx of Uthun if he wants. Recast it next turn and
dig 5 cards deeper.
I don't think it really needs to. I think that 5/5 flyer is going to be enough. Yep, Brian passes the turn back.
Now it looks like it was the Beast Tracker was drawn. Monthly Beast Tracker.
Moonwolfy Beast Tracker. I wonder what that's going to let Alex fetch from his deck.
looking at his list, he has Acidic Slime.
Spike Bailoff, he's already used the Acidic Slime.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
One of the Acidic Slime's actually still in the deck because it got Void Stalkered away.
Can't get Thragtusk. It doesn't have any of those abilities that it needs to have.
Well, he's going to cast the Beast Tracker anyway. And let's see what he decides to get. To put on the top of his library. Duskdale Worm is one of the cards he pulls immediately to the front. And he will get the Duskdale Worm. Put that on top of his library. But it's unfortunate that Duskdale Worm isn't going to be that effective because of the Void Stalker that's on Brian Demars' side of the table.
Yeah, Brian Demars now at a very comfortable 10 life. A lot more comfortable for when he was sitting at 5.
For sure.
Should I just keep it face up?
Alex Lloyd will pass the turn back with that Duskdale Worm on the top of his library. Oh, first he's going to play a land. Maybe he wants to attack. Do you think you attack here into the 5/5 Sphinx of Uthon? Can't imagine that's going to be profitable for him.
Yeah, I don't think you can really attack.
Especially
here.
after you cast your newly drawn card, the Moonwolvie Beast Tracker. But
yep, let's put Sphinx.
Anyway.
Attacking the Sphinx. Let's see if Brian can read Alex's soul right here. Taking deep in the eyes.
All known information. But Brian Demars goes ahead and takes it. He's okay with taking 3, dropping down to 7. Interesting. Brian Demars draws for his turn. Searing Spirit drawn again. It's interesting. It's sort of like deja vu. Seeing Brian Demars draw these cards all over again. That's the power of the Elixir of Immortality.
So 3 mana. It's going to start off with Divination. 1/2. Goblin Arsonist and I want to say a land. It's getting a lot colder in the venue now. There's less bodies.
I'm freezing personally, but we also have to keep our voices down a little bit because the players might be able to hear us. Elixir of Immortality comes back down.
Now 4 mana. Krenko,
Mob Boss.
One of the cards that Brian didn't see the first time through his deck.
Yeah, one of the few remaining cards. All of his bombs were at the bottom. The Sphinx, the Krenko, Stormtide Leviathan. Sphinx will get in. The 5/6 will drop Alex down to 10 life. Brian will pass the turn back. Duskdale Worm will get drawn. But I can't imagine that's going to be enough.
Here comes Walking Corpse.
Brian Demars is going to take... Is he going to use Searing Spear here? No, it looks like he's going to activate Elixir of Immortality first. No, maybe not.
Interesting.
Looks like
Brian will jump up to 12 life.
Well, then take another 3, right, and go down to 9.
Mm-hmm. Unless he decides to do something afterwards.
He could still block, I suppose. Definitely not casting on Summon, because he would have cast that before he used the Elixir of Immortality. Yep, just takes 3, goes down to 9.
We expect it. Yeah, 7/7 Trample should be coming out here now.
Yeah, but the Void Stalker is going to be able to take care of that.
7.
And I think Brian Demars has almost a win on board. He's 1 point short, I believe, because of that Searing Spear in his hand. Kraken Hatchling drawn. Sphinx will get in, dropping Alex down to 5 life. Goblin Arsonist.
Help Krenko crank out even more goblins.
And then finally, Kraken Hatchling comes down for Brian Demars. think Brian Demars has this game taken over. I can't imagine. I'm looking at Alex's deck list. I can't imagine what he could draw here.
Let's see if he scoops it up and draws a swamp. Doesn't look like he'll be able to win.
And yep, Brian Demars wins the first game here of the semifinals over Alex Lloyd. And they'll go to a second game. Of course, if we take a look at the bracket, we can see that Robert Victory has already progressed to the finals.
He took down Cedric Phillips in
the semifinals.
Yeah, in the semifinals. First taking him out with Tormented Souls, and then taking him out with Sands of Delirium.
2 different routes to victory. And the winner of this match that we're watching will take on Robert Victory in the finals.
And here we are, the shuffling up for game 3. Or game 2. It felt like game 3 with how long that first game went. And we're seeing.
Well, I mean, Brian Demars looped through his entire deck.
Yeah, he was really looking for that Storm-Tide Leviathan for the longest time. We didn't realize that he had the Elixir in his deck.
Sure didn't.
But that Elixir helped him a ton. Put him in a more comfortable life total, help him get some new spells in there, and obviously avoided decking.
Looks like Spelltwine's going to come out of Brian Demars' deck in a second wall.
Third wall of fire. Third wall of fire.
Third wall of fire is going to come in. Well, these players get shuffled up for the second game here.
Alex doesn't appear he made any changes. He has a mountain in his deck. Bond Beetle's like, yeah, this card might not be the best.
Alex had a pair of Mark of Mutinies that he added.
Okay.
He's figuring out what he wants to board out.
I think I'd reach for those Bond Beetles.
Maybe the Bond Beetles weren't the strongest.
But he's looking like he wants to remove his Crippling Blights.
Is that really the right thing to do?
Crippling
Blight, Wall of Fires.
Wall of Fires, it helps him. It helps against the Wall of Fires. Helps against Void Stalker if Brian passes a turn without being able to activate Void Stalker. I mean, Goblin Arsonist, I guess you could get rid of though.
I think the big thing is just the walls. And
Bond Beat, on the other hand, just doesn't seem good right now. Like, what are you looking to do with Bond Beetle in this matchup?
Yeah, I don't. Maybe force through a couple extra points, but yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think he should take out the Bond Beetles, but it looks like he's taking out the Crippling Blights to add in the Mountain pair of Mark of Mutinies. I agree that Mark of Mutiny is good in his deck. Right, he can use it on any of Brian's big creatures. Get rid of a blocker so that he can force through damage. I like that choice, but I agree with you, Ray, that he should be boarding out those Bond Beetles instead of the Crippling Blights. I think the Crippling Blights are still very good. Players are shuffling up. Alex is just double counting his deck, making sure he boarded in correctly.
Right. Oh, it looks like he still has to take something out.
I mean, technically, he doesn't have to take anything out.
Oh, yeah.
You can play more than the amount of cards you registered, as long as you have a 40-card deck when you present it. Looks like he's taking out Moonwalvy Beast Tracker. Interesting.
Definitely he's got some Bond Beetles there.
That's for sure. Players present their decks to cut. And we should have game 2 for you guys underway momentarily.
So, Alex kind of saw what Brian's deck's capable of, so he's...
Yeah, he almost saw the entire thing.
Yeah, he needs to come out a little quicker, find a way to fight through Brian, before Brian could get in control of late game. Brian was able to stabilize at 5 life.
Yep. Looks like Alex Lloyd will start things off with a turn to Ravenous Rats. Brian Demars will have to discard something.
He has 2 Wall Fires in hand. He has the Storm-Tide Leviathan. which is one card that Alex didn't see the entire last game.
Brian Demars is a second land and passes it back. Ravenous Rats will get in there for 1. And a second Ravenous Rats for Alex. That hand disruption's got to be pretty good, right?
Yeah, with 2 Wall of Fires, I think Brian can risk throwing one away. But, oh, he has a Fairy Invaders.
Yeah, I don't see any blue mana in his hand, but there he goes. He draws the island. Maybe that was the reason he discarded Fairy Invaders, but as an island, will play Rummaging Goblin before he plays the Wall of Fires. Ravenous Rats will get in there. Brian goes to 17 life. I mean, Ravenous Rats isn't really doing the type of damage that Alex wants to do, and Alex is stuck on 2 lands. No third land for Alex.
Here's Krenko. Krenko's going to be able to start pumping out goblins quickly. Draws a Titanic Growth.
Still no third land, and Alex will be forced to pass it back. Rummaging Goblin will rummage away a mountain. Draw Brian. Brian almost forgot to draw because he was so afraid.
Yeah, let's just skip the draw part. I just want to discard cards.
Looks like he drew Divination. If he Divinations here and draws into a Goblin Arsonist, he can make 3 Goblin tokens, but instead he wants to hold a blue up for the unsummon he drew. Looks like he also drew a mountain anyway. And he's going to pass the turn back. He wants to hold that mountain for Rummaging Goblin.
Now there's a forest for Alex Lloyd.
They'll turn his Mind Rot on. But the real question is, does Alex have a answer to Krenko? Krenko's going to get out of hand really quickly. Start with 2 tokens, then 4 tokens. Grows exponentially.
2 Wall of Fires. And 2 goblins are incoming now. Here they come. Yeah, Alex is in big trouble here.
Rummaging Goblin will rummage away the mountain. I didn't get a chance to see what Brian drew off the Rummaging Goblin, and then he drew, is that a Goblin Arsonist for his turn? Still have all of these goblins.
There's a Goblin Arsonist. Next activation from Krenko is going to bring out 5 goblins, so up the total to a total of 10 on the table.
So Divination will draw Brian 2 cards, and Brian's just going to start using Krenko now, so he can attack in with his Goblin tokens, I assume. Yep, attacks in with his 2/1/1 Goblin tokens. Does Alex want to block? Looks like he will block with his Ravenous Rats. Does Alex have an answer to Krenko?
Yeah, Krenko is just absurd.
Blind Hunter or Blood Hunter Bat comes down.
Yeah, they might not be it might not be able to get blocked by the tokens, but I think it's going to be on the defensive at some point.
Rummaging Goblin will discard an unsummon. They'll draw a mountain for Brian. Brian will untap with 8 goblins in play, threatening 16 next turn. Looks like he's first going to play Searing Spear on the Blood Hunter Bat. Brian is going to get in for 7, it looks like, dropping Alex down to 15, and hold Krenko back to make 8 more goblins. Man, Alex needs something really good here, like a Public Execution, but he's 2 lands off of that.
Or Cower in Fear would be...
Oh, Cower in Fear would be awesome right here. But it doesn't look like he has any of those cards. Looks like he's going to be... What is he going to do? Is this going to be the end for Alex Lloyd? I see an Elvish Visionary in hand. That will buy him 1 card. Is that going to be the card he needs?
Draws and...
it's a forest. I cannot imagine that's what he wanted. He's going to cast Pond Beetle.
It's a perfect blocker for a 1/1 Goblin token.
That's going to add a +1/+1 counter to the Elvish Visionary. And end of turn, 8 more goblins will come down for Brian Demars. Good thing he's got that gigantic stack of goblin tokens. So 8 plus the 8 already in play. That's 16. 2 blockers for Alex Lloyd. Brian will be able to put him down to 1 life if he chooses, and if he's got a burn spell or a spell twine maybe, he might be able to finish the game off. Brian is doing the math right now.
Is Krenko going to come in itself? I don't.
I think if Krenko comes in, he can drop Alex down to exactly 1 life. Because he got 8 goblins and then 8 more goblin tokens, and one of them is Krenko. The rest are just 1/1s. So that's 16, 2 blockers.
Yeah,
we'll make it 14.
Mm-hmm.
Alex is at 15 life.
All right. We're down to a goblin with a die on it.
Yep. So yeah, I assume that die has there's 15 goblins. Got 1/1 goblin tokens for Brian Demars.
So unsummon, get rid of Elvish Visionary.
Yeah, that should be the game. Brian Demars untaps, attacks with all of his goblins. Alex can only block 1, and there's 16 of them. So that should be 15 damage that Brian Demars needs. And that's the match. Brian Demars takes the semifinals 2 games to 0. Wow, what a match. After an hour-long game 1, a little shorter game 2, Brian Demars advances to the finals. There you see a smile out of Brian Demars. And we should have the finals up for you guys momentarily after Brian Demars.
Yeah, congratulations.
A little break.
Congratulations to Brian Demars making the finals of this Grand Prix. He's going to be facing Robert Victory's BR Aggro deck.
Yep. I'm curious.